Hi, good evening, folks, and welcome to firstly 2025, and this being our first installment for the new year of the Minority Report. I'm Ireland David, your host, and it is indeed a pleasure seeing you, being here with you, coming into your living room, into your homes. It's always a feeling of excitement, and especially when we would have crossed over into a new year. Yes, crossing over into 2025. I'm elated, and I really want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank God for this blessing, this privilege, not just for life, but being able to transition safely and successfully into a new year. Quite a bit in store for this new year of 2025, and I know to all of us, there are so many things that we are looking forward to, but we intend to take it step by step, day by day, to systematically deliver to you, the people, those things that the minority has been mandated to. So thanks for joining us this evening. As I usually say, I want to go into the administrative stuff. If you are looking at the program, you can view us on the Tobago Updates website. You can view us on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel, and that's live. The Tobago Updates Facebook page, or if you're an AMPLIA subscriber, you can turn your TV to channel 102. That is channel 102 on the AMPLIA network, and you can enjoy us from the comfort of your home. If you are going to participate in the conversation via the Facebook Live, I want to encourage you to make your comments as respectful as possibly can. This is a family type program. Many persons have their children looking on, because it is indeed incumbent on parents to ensure that your children are informed about the issues that are taking place not only in Tobago, but in Trinidad and Tobago by extension. Informed children make informed choices and informed decisions. So I ask you to keep your comments as positive and as respectful, and let's respect each other's choice to comment as well. I want to go straight into introducing members of the team tonight, members of the panel. All of us coming to you for the first time for 2025, so I know there are going to be some greetings for those of you who have not been able to connect with us on that level. So to my immediate right, welcome to the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, in studio, ready to go for 2025. Good evening.
Let me say good evening to you, Mr. David. Good evening to all our loyal viewers, supporters, both here, Tobago, Trinidad, and all across the world. We know that we have followership all across the region, and we just want to welcome you, want to also wish you a peaceful, productive 2025, and may God continue to bless and keep us all richly. You know, there's so much that would have happened and transpired in the last 13 days since the year has begun, and therefore we look forward to the conversations, look forward to us continuing to bring information to you. And you know, it just dawned on me today that if one really wants to have a fair comparison of what it means to be of the minority, that is PNM, and the majority, that is TPP, then one needs just to look at how this show, the Minority Report, continues to grow from strength to strength, as opposed to the show that the TPP started that is non-existent. And therefore, the Minority Report, it shows the PNM stability, it shows the PNM's organization, and it shows our ability to manage and keep things going.
Exactly.
Imagine they had a show, that show only lasted about 2 to 3 weeks on the same program, same Tobago updates. Their show only lasted 2 to 3 weeks, and here we are going about 2 years strong. And I want to thank
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Right, Mr. David, and of course to my immediate right, this gentleman who has always been a tower of support readily available to also contribute. Mr. Lawrence Hislop, how are you doing, brother?
Good enough. Good. Good night, Mr. David. The minority leader did the introduction.
I like that.
Let me say a pleasant good night to Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago by extension. Truly a privilege to be here. I want to wish everyone, before the year gets too old, I want to wish everyone a happy new year, prosperous, successful 2025. No matter what the challenges are that may come, I know that with God, we will overcome every single challenge. 2025 is going to be a success, even if pain and hurt comes. He's going to give us the strength to go through them, to overcome them, because when we have these kind of challenges and these kind of tests in our lives, it is really to bring out the metal in us, is to purify us, is to work on who we are for us to be better persons. So once again, it's good to be here. It's good to be part of the team. I want to compliment the minority leader again and minority councillor in her absence for the work that they've been doing over the last 2 to 3 years. They've kept the administration on their toes. They've done what their mandate is, which is to assist in the development of Tobago, even though you're not in governance. Your role is to be there to highlight, to even share suggestions, as you have done and reached out across the aisle for you to have meetings and so on with those in office in Tobago. And I want to compliment the minority team for doing an excellent job. Just the two of you guys, and well, just the two that you can see with the titles, but that's just the tip of the spear that the entire support of the People's National Movement, Tobago Council and the National Party is definitely behind the minority team. So when you see them, it is not just the minority leader and the minority councillor, but it's P&M coming. And I want to compliment the team for doing an excellent job. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Before we get right into the meeting, we have so much to unveil and unmask this evening, but as many persons would have known, the PNM would have held, that is Tobago East and West, held our screening process. So I want to take the opportunity as well to congratulate both members of Parliament presently for Tobago East and West on being selected as the candidates going forward. Guys, your thoughts on that?
No, well, I'm speaking from the standpoint of, I guess, the PRO of the council right now. The PNM has a tried and tested and proven system, and everybody else, and this is not about being boastful or arrogant, but this is about the reality. Every other political entity in the country has attempted to replicate the PNM's system in terms of how you select candidates and the process, but the process is extremely transparent, robust. Every member of the party can put forward their names for nomination for a seat. Once you're a member of the party, and you can get a nomination from one party group. One party group is all you need to face the screening committee. You go to the screening committee, and you're there. You have to give account. You have to say why you should be the one chosen. And that was no different for MP Ayanna Webster and MP Shamfoko Joe Lewis. Even though they are what you may consider veteran candidates, they would tell you that a screening process is not for the faint-hearted, and it isn't. So even if you are an incumbent, when you sit before a screening committee, it's not for the faint-hearted. You are grilled. You have to give account, and especially if you are an incumbent and you're returning, you have to give account for your stewardship as to why the committee should consider you again, and the system that is there, that has been tried and tested all these years, has once again produced, and I think, two exemplary candidates. I think that there is no doubt in my mind when you compare who the PNM has put forward as the standard bearers for Tobago East and West, in comparison to what may come from other entities who may be seeking. I have no doubt that MP Iana Webster and MP Shamfaka Juniors are the best. And Tobago can't go wrong again for once again putting their support behind these two young women who have proven themselves, who have gone who are part of the national system and have made Tobagonians proud of who we've sent to speak for us and to stand up for us. The Minister of Sport and Community Development is doing significant work in her ministry. And the minister in the office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs has been doing significant work. And as a Tobagonian, I am proud of what these two young women have done. And I have no doubt that they would be given that mandate again by the people of Tobago to continue to serve them. And that's why I rest that for now.
I just want to join Lawrence in one congratulating our two members of parliament who will be returning as the PNM standard bearers. And I am confident that their record speaks for themselves. So it is without a doubt Tobagonians, and I speak on behalf of Tobagonians, we are proud of those two young ladies.
Very much so.
Have represented Tobago with class, dignity, integrity. These are the qualities that we know that, when you say you are Tobagonian, that people recognize, and therefore they have really exemplified what it means to be a Tobagonian. And for some people want a lot of noise, but they have done representation the way representation should be, which is effective, which is collaborative, and which is ensuring at the end of the day the goods and services required by the people of Tobago are delivered within the remit of the central government. And therefore it's also important for persons to understand the separation of powers, the role of a member of parliament as opposed to the role of a member of a district in the Tobago House of Assembly. And therefore as well, when you hear the noise, you are more informed as to know some of it is just hogwash, because when you hear people saying that they're going to go to the parliament and give Tobago this and give Tobago that, then you know they do not know what the role of a parliamentarian is. And therefore I am proud. I want to congratulate them. And I am very sure that come the next opportunity, once again, Tobagonians will place their trust in those two very exemplary, hard-working young ladies that have represented Tobago so well.
And the minority leader spoke to something about those who are seeking to put forward themselves now for these two seats outside of the PNM or in opposition to the PNM. And they say when they get to Trinidad, they are going to give the BCDF. And I don't think people understand how the parliamentary process of Trinidad and Tobago works.
Correct.
You have, let's just paint a scenario that one seat goes somewhere else. God forbid. But let's just paint that scenario for our viewers tonight. And that person goes to Trinidad. This is what they are going to seek to do. They are going to seek to bargain and negotiate.
Correct.
And I want Tobagonians to ask those who are putting themselves forward, who are not part of a national party, of a national system, what are you negotiating? What are you willing to bargain? Because I want to remind, and we too, because I want to remind Tobagonians that we were in this scenario already. We were in a scenario where a Tobago, what they may be considered a Tobago-based or Tobago-only party wins the two seats. But then you go to Trinidad. I remember it happened under
So, folks, we apologize for that slight break in transmission. We didn't expect that some interference would be on tonight because and many persons do not want the Minority Report to continue. But by the grace of God, we will overcome every challenge. So, Senator Hislop, you were just about to go into going further with what minority leader spoke to with respect to the separation of powers. Because I think that that's something that a lot of persons don't understand. And we're hearing voices that want to blame the MPs that they didn't do anything for Tobago and they didn't fix this for you and they didn't fix that. And people need to understand the clear separation of powers that exists in the roles and responsibilities.
No, well, as an MP, you have a national perspective, and you bring the national governments. So if you're an MP that's part of the government, your responsibility is to bring government services, central government services, and make them accessible to your constituents, right? So as the point I was making is that we've been in this scenario already where we've had 2 Tobago seats being bartered or being used for negotiation purposes. And I made the point that as far as I can remember, the first instance that we had that was when Mr. Robinson, it was Robinson and who was the other person that won?
Mrs. Pamela.
Pamela Nicholson won those 2 seats.
Yeah.
And what we got was, I'm not sure is that, but what we got when Mr. Robinson was sitting there with Basdio Pandey as Prime Minister was President and Minister Extraordinary.
I think Miss Nicholson was also Minister of Sport.
She was Minister of Sport.
Then they got away eventually, and Tobago had nothing.
Right,
nothing.
And that's what we ended up with. When we were under the People's Partnership, that was another scenario of negotiating the 2 Tobago seats. And again, using Tobago like a bastard child to be negotiated for. And I have a challenge with that. And persons have to also bear in mind that if you go down as quote unquote separate and apart from a national party, you have to negotiate even speaking time. The government sets the parliamentary, the legislative agenda for the parliamentary session. And you have to now jockey for speaking time with other people if you're not part of a national picture, a national party. And those are some of the things that folks have to remember. And you are saying that if you win the 2 Tobago seats, you'll get internal self-government. And we keep making the point that 2 seats are a far cry from 41. And so with the 2 seats, you cannot give Tobago
anything.
It's
nothing.
It's virtually impossible for you to give Tobago anything with 2 seats. Because what they are attempting to do is to say to people, if you give us this, if we win these 2 seats, we are going to say to whoever the government is, for us to give you our 2, you have to give us internal self-government. That is the dangerous and deceptive narrative that this TPP administration is seeking to do. They are saying that if we win the 2 Tobago seats, we are going to say to whether it's PNM or UNC, we will give you our 2 for you to form the government, but you have to give me internal self-government.
And that just makes that is such a foolish approach, in that we've just seen that you have to also have a special majority. So
exactly.
How could you take the 2 seats and say that is what would decide the government, and in deciding the government, we are going to also use that as the bargaining chip to give us self-government? How does that work? And then you have this situation as well, where if you're not part of a national party that can form the government, then you're really wasting.
You're a backbencher.
You're wasting time, and you are wasting Tobago's 2 precious seats, and therefore, by that measure alone, anyone coming for your support who cannot form and
National.
form the
Yeah,
government,
the government.
is really is a non-starter in the race.
Of course, because
It's a
you
non-starter.
see, I don't know, even if people need to also pay attention to the fact that your two MPs, your current MPs,
Yeah.
are cabinet ministers.
Both of them.
And
Both
when
of
you
them.
have members of parliament who are cabinet ministers, that is where the policy
Decisions,
direction and the decisions are
Correct.
made for governance.
Correct.
And so the execution of government policy in Tobago gets a Tobago voice. And even the execution of government policy in Trinidad gets
Yeah.
a Tobago
Correct.
perspective
Yeah.
because you have two
'Cause it affects
members
us all.
of parliament who sit in the cabinet.
And case in point, for example, you have the member of parliament who is the minister of sport and
Community
culture and community
Community
development. And as you said, because that minister, that member of parliament is a Tobagonian, what we end up benefiting from is programs
Yeah.
that is of a national scale,
Two bites to the cherry.
also being able to be in Tobago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When in a normal running of things, those programs would have just been localized to Trinidad, but you have so that is the benefit you have when you have your members of parliament who are from Tobago in
Part
a
of the
government
national
that
construct.
is
Cabinet.
part of the cabinet.
Because my
Even
referee that we-
international
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
Because we've benefited from international
yeah.
events, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, because you
And
also speak into the fact that the decision for two fast ferries,
Correct.
Exactly.
cabinet decision.
Correct.
The decisions for all
Airport.
for the airports,
Airport.
cabinet decision.
The police station, the
we,
fire
and see,
station.
we're just talking about the MPs.
Yeah.
But Tobago was in a more advantageous position over the last 9 years. That you not only had two MPs who were Tobagonian
But
in
Prime
cabinet,
Minister.
but you had a
Prime
prime
Minister.
minister who was Tobagonian, who made conscious decisions and listen, Tobago deserves an airport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tobago needs to come on equal footing with Trinidad with a modern state-of-the-art airport.
Correct.
Tobago deserves two brand new fast ferries.
Correct.
Those are the kinds of things that is cabinet does make them decisions.
And of course, Tobago deserves a marina, and that was on the card.
Correct.
It's just pettiness on the part of those who now sit, and that is why even as you go forward, you know, it is clear that it's better to have this arrangement where you have at the national level the government of one side, and at the Tobago level the government of the same side, because those projects that were implemented when you had both parties working together, collaborating.
Correct.
But we've seen how many projects and how many different things Tobago would have lost out from, because you now have some people sitting in Tobago that wants to fight. Take, for example, that, as I mentioned, that marina that should have been done at Cove by now, that they flatly rejected.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
road, that dual highway, that would have been part of the international airport terminal expansion project. That road that they rejected and
Yes.
refused.
Yeah.
Dual highway leading you from Shervan all the way down to the airport. And at that would have come at no cost to the THA, because the central government was going to undertake that project. And that $65 to $100 million that the THA is spending now, that could have gone to employing more people, building more community
Keeping
centers,
people working instead of firing
keeping
them.
people working.
Yeah.
Proper work, not turn on.
Proper work.
All those roads that we have to be dodging potholes.
Paying some of the students fees in abroad.
That would have been $65 to $100 million. That would have gone.
Exactly.
Because you see, and let me reiterate this point. Even if you win your 2 Tobago seats, and you're outside of the national government construct, I think I made the point before, you're a backbencher. The most you can do is stand up in parliament and talk. the most you can do, because even as a backbencher, if you want to get a motion brought to the floor as a private member, right, on private members day, you have to negotiate with the whip or the leader, well, the whip, because if you don't give the two to whoever is the government, you're the opposition, right? So you have to now negotiate with the whip for private members day, and bearing in mind that the reality is that opposition leader has more people to deal with than you and have bigger issues to deal with than you. And so I want to say to Tobagonians, be very careful about the choices you make in the general election. Because if you make the wrong choice for the general election, you can end up outside of the decision-making process from a national level. And all you are going to get is people who go down. And if you say no, that the MPs aren't doing anything, consider if you have an MP who is on the opposition bench as a backbencher. Well, you ain't getting nothing at all. Because that person would not even have the weight to negotiate for anything for Tobago.
And this, you all keep talking about alignment, and I want to highlight something. Remember, in Minority Leader in the issue, when the Prime Minister was making it mandatory to get the 2 Tobago ferries, remember the UNC did everything in their remit to shut that down.
That's right.
And I want the director to pull up the 2 photos so that we'll see what is the alignment that Tobago will get anytime we decide to give those 2 seats somewhere else. Mr. Director, give us those photos. And bearing in mind, these are the persons who wrote to the Attorney General of Australia to say, do not go forward with this arrangement.
Well, to accuse the Prime Minister of trying to build, and the Prime Minister of Australia being involved in contract.
Exactly. To disrepute.
To disrepute. And these are the unholy alignments that Tobago would have to look forward to. These are the very people that wrote to shut it down.
And what I want, because you see, I've charged this TPP of being in a secret relationship with the UNC. In fact, the TPP is the UNC's echo in Tobago. And I want Tobagonians to recognize. Take a look.
Look
Every
at
time
it good.
Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa speaks in Trinidad,
It's echoed by
everything she says is then echoed by Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine. So they are in fact one in the same. The UNC is TPP in Tobago.
Exactly.
And that is why the UNC has no interest in being in Tobago, because they have their echo.
Agents. They have the agents here.
Well, Minority Leader, the leader, the chief.
And
go ahead and finish.
No, this is not AI technology.
This is
Director, pull it up again.
Alliance.
I want everybody to see it.
TPP and the UNC.
But the chief whip said, MP David Lee said, when asked about the UNC having a presence in Tobago, and I wish we had that clip. But
we'll find it.
We'll get it
because we are going to be focused on educating
Tobagonians need to understand
this. The man who is currently on $1 million bail, still sitting as a member of parliament under the leadership of the opposition leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa. He said, when asked, why doesn't the UNC have a presence in Tobago? He says we have Fali and Duke in Tobago. That is what he said.
And we'll get it.
I'm saying this on open air. I am not saying this under the cover of parliamentary privilege. But that is what he said. We have Fali and Duke in Tobago. So we don't need to have a presence in Tobago as the UNC.
But it's even clear, and we keep asking the Chief Secretary, and we'll get into it, because they keep denying.
Yes.
Right? They keep
denying
their friends in Trinidad. Every time you say that they are lying, no, we are not aligned, because they know Tobagonians are fearful of the UNC.
Correct.
So what they want to do is sneak in Tobago's 2 seats and then hand it over to the UNC when it's too late. For you to realize what would have happened. But they are in total alliance.
Cahoots,
Mr.
everything.
Augustine echoes everything that Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa says and Mr. Munilal. Everything that they said. If you
Jolene
listen
John.
on a Monday, Fali comes on a Tuesday.
Correct.
And
I
the
want him
thing-
to auto-correct these
And
photos.
watch me. And the thing about it is, the thing about it is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your alliance. You know, you are free under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago
Yeah.
for political affiliation.
Yeah.
That you are free. I have
And
absolutely.
partnerships.
I have
Partnerships.
absolutely no problem. There's nothing wrong with what
Yeah.
the TPP is doing. What is wrong is them saying to Tobagonians that we don't have any friends in the UNC.
And it goes again to this
Exactly.
theme, the great
greatest
deception.
deception.
Stop trying to deceive Tobagonians. Come clean. Come clean and let us judge you
Exactly.
I am
on your relationships.
I am
Don't
proud.
hide your relationships.
And guys,
we are proud PNM.
I want
Don't
the
hide your
director.
relationship.
Director, pull back up the one with the opposition leader and the chief secretary for me, please.
Don't
I want
hide
to
your
point out something
relationship.
on that particular photo that
Because
the UNC put
There's
on.
more to this, innit? If you look at
What's in the top right? You know what that
UNC,
says?
Team UNC,
and that came from a UNC page.
This
that
is a
is
UNC page.
and they keep telling you Tobagonians,
That
and I
the-
know
the annual
they'll come
alignment.
tomorrow morning, especially the deputy chief secretary
Yes.
will come to say, no, we not
She
with
wasn't
them.
there. She
But
probably
your
don't even know
chief
about this.
secretary, your political leader of the TPP, is clearly
Tell Tobago
in a
about that.
relationship with the UNC.
But
Come and explain to
but I've
Tobago.
also heard, and I know we're gonna move on to another
And
topic.
their plan is to sell the two
But-
Tobago
Sell
seats
the
to the
seats.
UNC.
But I have also heard
Probably that is what they was negotiating
that
this.
it is said that, and I don't like to refer to the honorable member by her first name. I was trained better than that. So I have heard it said in other spaces that when we get the two Tobago seats and the honorable opposition leader becomes prime minister, the honorable opposition leader will give Tobago what he wants.
Yeah,
That is what
we've
I've
been
heard.
hearing the undertones, but all
How
I'm
they know
saying,
that? Because they have a relationship
that's
and
what
they
I
talking.
said.
as Senator Hizzopa said, nobody, we can't tell you who to associate
Your
with and
friend.
who to like.
Your
your
friend,
We
friend,
can't tell
man.
you who to like
He's your
and who
friend.
to go into a relationship with. But if you're in a relationship, don't deny it. At least come clean.
I
And you have
don't
been
understand
exposed.
this.
You have been exposed tonight.
Yes.
And just do the honorable thing and accept that you all have
friends
you
in-
have friends
You have friends in other places.
in other
That is
places
it.
in you. We are proud when the
That is
Tobago
it.
Council of the PNM comes to you. You know it is the PNM
What
and
you see is what you
national
get.
organization of over 68 years, going on 69
Yes.
on the 27th, I think, of January.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
don't hide. We are always
Have
red,
to.
red, red,
And we
red.
just take licks for
And
it.
we are
But
proud
we are
of who
proud
we
to
are.
be
We ever team up with anybody to fight
And we
anybody?
have proven that we are a party that can, even if there are challenges within, we can settle it, we can deal with it, whether
Yes.
Tobago, Trinidad, Tobago. We are the PNM.
Mm-hmm.
We already have a template that exemplifies how autonomy should work.
Exactly.
Where you have an autonomous Tobago Council of the PNM
Correct.
working collaboratively with the national arm. A formidable force.
So we understand how
We
autonomy
understand
works.
how autonomy works.
And
But,
minority,
and that is why we don't have to hide.
no
We
backdoor
don't have to
meetings.
hide. No backdoor.
No,
When we go down to Trinidad,
the media could come.
Yeah.
we go down to Balize House, number one tranquility. We go down to Balize House,
Yeah.
walking proudly.
Proudly.
We not hide.
Exactly.
We don't hide.
But when
Which
you go-
media
but-
block you, then
Yeah,
you
but
talk to
some-
them.
but other
Some people
persons
having
go
meetings
and
in
have-
dark rooms.
That's right.
Dark rooms. And no, if you look, and then it's also, and all they did was dig up the remnants of what was
has-
left
that's
in-
right,
from the
before.
People's Partnership.
Yes.
Because you're seeing it and you're seeing them rearing their heads again.
Correct.
If you go into TRHA,
Right now.
you would see a perfect example of the PPP. Reincarnation right in the TRHA.
Yeah.
From you have former
Forwards leader.
Justice
Minister of Justice, who is the chairman. And we've seen a recent appointment, former
Minister
for Tobago Development. And if you go up to Roxborough, you will see specialists there. That is
Correct.
UNC, former health minister, former health minister.
Yeah.
So the UNCs are live in Tobago. And it will be the responsibility of Tobagonians to determine if we want UNC to surreptitiously and deceptively voice themselves in Tobago, because they're not coming in yellow.
No,
they are coming in blue.
In blue.
They are coming in blue.
And the thing about it is, I really want Tobagonians to tell me, or to say to me, what did we get from the UNC under the People's Banner? What did we get? What was the benefit of Tobago giving those 2 seats? More than maybe a house for somebody private.
Personal gain.
Yeah, but what did we get?
It was so
personal
bad that the
gain.
member of parliament for Tobago West didn't even see fit to come and defend his record. Tobago, remember that?
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
That PPP relationship, that TOP alignment to the UNC failed Tobago so bad.
Miserably.
That both the Tobago East and the Tobago West representatives who we elected in Tobago to represent Tobago failed and found that arrangement so disastrous that they did not even return to the people,
To the public.
to validate
Yeah.
their tenureship.
Yeah.
Waste
And
of time.
Tobago, you all knowing that record, seeing that record, after having 2 of the best members of parliament in the Tobago situation in recent time.
Yeah.
2 young ladies that you could stand proud and tall, knowing that they would have represented you with dignity, decency, integrity, honesty, respect,
And delivered.
and delivered. Knowing all of that, you would even consider this arrangement where you have a TPP being the echo of UNC.
Correct.
And trying to hide and deceptively telling you that we are not
in
alignment. They are in alignment.
But the TPP is the TPP. And I don't want to spend much more time on that political entity. But they are a reincarnation of the DAC, the NAR, the TOP, the Forwards. You come right down the line of all the parties that have been in Tobago, that have been in opposition to the PNM. And this is the TPP is just a reincarnation of that. What they've done is that they've put forward these young faces as the face and the front. But when you look at who's pulling the strings behind, it's the same players. It's the same players from past failed administration. It's the same
Failed
players.
to deliver to Tobago. And guys, I want us to shift into this. Because this is something, and this particular point next is very, very critical for all of us here in Tobago. Now, we've heard the Chief Secretary made some comments with respect to legacy of the Prime Minister and this kind of thing. But one of the things that stood out most is when he said that he's disappointed because under this Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, Tobago didn't get autonomy. Now, that is the biggest deception of all time.
Very quickly, because we know we'll have other opportunities. In fact, we will have a program really that would be dedicated to really celebrating the legacy of that 45-year career of Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. But of course, you know, I just want to pay tribute to Dr. Rowley's legacy and leadership, not just at the level of the People's National Movement, but of the country. And when you think about where Dr. Rowley took the reins of power, where in fact the governor of the central bank at that time, I remember the Minister of Finance saying he came with a smirk.
A week.
Telling him you only have a week
or a couple of days of money.
The overdraft. You only have a couple more days. before we don't have no money to pay nobody.
Oil and gas, oil went into
Oil and gas had
into a minus
plummeted
figure.
at one day it was minus
It was
something.
it was a minus
And
figure.
this prime minister managed and as he said at the time, we are not going to go to the IMF. We will take
Correct.
our
Our own medicine.
own medicine
Our own
in at the dosage that we
can manage. That's right.
And that let us not a single person on the public
Public
payroll
Was sent to
was sent home. We had COVID right after coming out, where you're trying to manage the economy.
because by
COVID.
that time the economy had started
Yeah,
to turn around. And then boom, you get hit with COVID.
And again, you saw
Leadership.
And while that is happening, you see, and people like to talk about diversification, but right now, you have no better example of a prime minister and a government that has shifted the focus of, while maintaining, yes, oil and gas, but as it stands, the non-energy sector is performing even better than the energy sector, and the manufacturing is doing
agriculture is on the rise.
I think it's 54% of GDP or so. And therefore, I just want to thank Dr. Rowley for his leadership, for his guidance, for his vision of bringing Trinidad and Tobago through one of our most difficult periods in the country's history.
Because you see, history has a way that they say hindsight is 20/20. So you always see things perfectly when you're looking back.
Yeah.
And he may be vilified by some now, but I tell you something. If you consider what Trinidad and Tobago may have had to deal with, were we under the direction and leadership of another prime minister. Because the thing about this man from Mason Hall is that he took difficult decisions, but the right decisions. So it was not about popularity. It was not about doing what people. It was not about making people feel good. It's about, my father always had a statement that was deferred gratification. We've grown so accustomed in this society now to instant gratification. We want everything now.
And we want to see the benefits.
And so you had a leader. You have a leader in Dr. Rowley. You have and still leader. You have a leader in Dr. Rowley who understands his responsibility to every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And even though the decision may not be popular, he takes it for the best interest of the country.
Correct.
And the minority leader is correct. When you look at other areas of the economy that has been growing, we've been in oil, in the energy sector for over 100 years. It's not easy to turn around a battleship. It takes time to turn an economy that is so dependent upon this thing. It takes time, and work has been ongoing in your trade and industry ministry to treat with the manufacturing sector, the non-energy sector, as the minority leader said, that has been doing significant work. When you consider the Prime Minister took a decision to have a standalone ministry for digital transformation. And we are going to see some things rolling out from that ministry in the next few months. That's taking Trinidad and Tobago forward in terms of our digitizing what we do and how we do what we do as a country. And then and you could go on about the work that's been done in public admin and all of these things to attempt to modernize Trinidad and Tobago. And I tip my hat again, as minority leader said, to the leadership of Dr. Keith Rowley. And I'm convinced that he was the right leader at the right time in this
Trinidad
country.
And Tobago.
And no other leader, prime minister, has done more for Tobago than what Dr.
Combine. Prime ministers combine. You combine all
of them, and they still have not done as much as.
And they still would not add up to what Dr. Rowley has delivered for the people of Tobago in the last 9 years. going on.
Yeah,
So-
and not only what he has delivered as leader of the government, but what he was willing to deliver.
yeah.
Because we could
have had
speak,
more.
Yeah.
We could speak to the infrastructure projects, and those are fine. But the reality is the significant development for this island that was rejected
Yes, correct.
by the
By the-
TPP and the UNC was additional autonomy
Exactly.
for this island.
Correct.
Exactly.
I
Let us not forget
I
that.
always made the point that we turned our backs on forward movement because we're looking for something that we're not even sure about. We were sure that we were going to get additional powers. We were sure
6.8%.
that we were going to get additional funding. We were sure that we were going to get
Exactly.
what you call corporation sole as your Secretary of Finance. We were sure
Fiscal Review
Fiscal
Commission.
Review Commission.
Exactly.
These are things that we
Our
were sure about.
dedicated
So
public
public
Yes,
service.
your representative on the Public Service
Exactly.
Commission and Teaching
All
Service
those
Commission.
issues.
Those were things we were sure about.
So in that process, guys,
Yeah,
we had that bill laid, and I want us to get this so the public
Yes.
understands. The People's National Movement had 20 votes available to vote for this bill, correct?
Correct.
22, sorry, 22. How many of the members of the People's National Movement voted for this bill?
22,
Every single
sir.
20.
Every single one
And if we
voted
had
for this
more, we'll
bill.
give it.
Every single
Every
one.
single one
If
was
we had
announced.
more, we'll
Then
have
But you see,
under-
but moderator, let me just jump in.
Yeah.
We ought to remember that the island government bill was passed.
Fast.
Because
Correct.
all
of
it
the
required was a
People's
simple
National
majority.
Exactly.
So the People's National Movement voted in favor
And
of
the
island
Tobago
government
having
bill.
its own island government.
Correct.
Yes.
So we went
And the UNC
half the way
voted
already.
against.
And the UNC
And the UNC voted again.
Under
Against the
instruction.
Tobago have
Correct.
Under instructions.
So I want persons to understand. Dr. Rowley led the PNM government, all 22 members, to vote for the bill.
And therefore it means what the PNM could have given, the
Was
PNM
given.
gave.
That's right.
So that's the track record of the PNM
Correct.
with respect
So
to island
the
government.
record is the PNM, through its simple majority, could
Give.
have given Tobago passed the
Right.
island government bill. And that was passed.
And that was passed.
Yeah.
However, the real meat of what needed to give that life is like a baby. But what really the umbilical cord to really provide the life to sustain that
cut it
baby?
off.
They cut it off and throw it away.
So
I want the director to pull up,
yeah.
Mr. Director, pull up the final page of that document that I would have sent you, which is headed the Tobago Island Government Bill 2021. Because I want Tobagonians to understand, this is a memo that was sent to the opposition.
Yeah.
We don't know how long before, but we know the
So,
Prime Minister get a WhatsApp
Yeah.
about 3 minutes before the session began.
No, well, the opposition was clear that they had this in it.
They had the
When you heard
document.
Saddam,
No, go ahead.
you
Go
know,
ahead.
when you heard Saddam present, he was clear that they were in possession of this.
Yes.
And therefore, he was trying to intervene as to even stop the procedure from going forward.
Exactly.
Based on this document that he received, and he received it sometime before because he said they caucus on it. So he would have had it. Why the Prime Minister got it a couple minutes before?
Yes.
He had it days.
Long time. Senator, go ahead.
Yeah.
No. You see, there is a level of deception
Yes.
Exactly.
that is constantly playing out with the current administration, and I keep making the point that you hearing a different conversation coming out.
Correct.
And again, this is the modus operandi of this administration. It's the same, it goes back to who your friends are. Because if you're saying that you don't have friends, but we see your alliances, then you're deceptive.
Exactly.
Now, if you're saying
Correct.
that we don't want that, but we say what you want, and the conversation is coming along the lines, and the chief secretary is attempting with all these programs, autocorrect and all of these things, is attempting to push a conversation that is along the lines of secession. And
Yeah.
if that is what you, or even if it is as a more significant position as it relates to autonomy, put forward your position. Because listen, you're in office 3 years. 3 years going on 4, right? You did not do the work to put forward any position, any
None.
Tobago position.
None.
Right? The bills have now been struck down. You're still not doing any work to put forward a Tobago position. All you have been doing is doing podcasts and videos.
Yeah.
But you have not done any significant work to say, okay, fine, let me pull another batch of legal people together and say to them, this is the position that we want. And you know, one of the things I'm waiting for, gentlemen, I'm waiting for the manifesto of parties in this general election. And not only the manifesto of the TPP, but I'm looking forward to the manifesto of the UNC as it relates to Tobago. And what the UNC is willing to give to Tobago. Because I want to remind the viewers that it was the People's National Movement at a convention that took a policy decision as it relates to autonomy for Tobago. And that policy decision then became government policy.
Yeah.
And government policy, and it evolved over time via consultation and treating with your experts as to the direction this thing ought to go when it comes to autonomy. But the UNC has, even in the House that day, the UNC failed to provide to the House any amendments that could have been tabled and discussed and voted on.
Correct.
And that is because they got clear instructions, because you had the last page up. They got clear
I want the Begonians to see, because we're going to read it. Mr. Director, pull it up.
They got clear instructions from the Tobago House of Assembly, from the Chief Secretary. And this is even after the Deputy Chief Secretary said the bills are good. They're decent. They just need a little change. This is after the Tobago House of Assembly, in a sitting, voted on a process
Correct.
by which Tobago ought to go forward. A bipartisan. This is after the Tobago. You are then going to say
By yourself.
unilaterally, do not proceed. And to me, that is the act of a dangerous man.
Correct.
Totally deceptive.
And I want to really treat with the fallacy of Farley. And the fallacy of Farley is this. Farley came via press conference on that day after he was the one who struck down the bill by telling the UNC, do not vote for the bill. And he came and he accused the PNM who voted for the bill as failing the bill and failing Tobago. So imagine a situation where you had a bill providing Tobago with greater autonomy and greater authority to manage and govern its affairs, giving Tobago for the first time the ability to make laws within the Tobago legislature that is directly assented by the president, more resources, 6.8% as a minimum, which is an additional $1.5 billion on what they're already getting. And you told the UNC, vote against that.
Correct.
The PNM vote for it. Yet the fallacy of Farley is that he, after striking down that and denying Tobagonians that opportunity, he then turns around and tells Tobagonians, blame the PNM. Blame the PNM, the ones who voted to give Tobago more. And the person who said, no, don't give Tobago nothing. Do not proceed. Yes, you give them a get out of jail card. Up to this day, you have not heard Farley made one accusation or call out the UNC.
The UNC for not voting. Not supported.
So the party that didn't vote gets a free pass. And the party that vote for it gets the IRE, to the point that they start calling us all kind of names. and disrespectful names.
And Minority
that
Leader,
to me is a fallacy, and as Brother Hislop just said, that is the
Dangerous.
characteristic of a dangerous, deceptive, and I dare say dishonest man.
What I want to push it further, because I want Tobago to hear what were the reasons why this deceptive individual said to the UNC not to proceed. And it's up, Mr. Director, pull it up again.
So read it. So
let's read it so people will understand. And I'll start from the second part. Tobago Island Government Bill. And this is his rationale. The Tobago Island Government Bill 2021 was not completely determined and agreed to by Tobagonians. Relatedly, Tobagonians were not consulted in any meaningful manner of the provisions and form of government prescribed in this bill. I want to stop there. Anybody remember the extensive consultation process that these bills went through?
But before we even get to that, I want to make this point that this aid memo that was sent, right? Even if you wanted these things,
that is not how we do it.
Amendments, right?
That is not how we do it.
There's a process to follow for amendments. The first,
which he's aware of.
He's aware. Well, he should be.
Yeah, because Mr. Charles,
but
they sent one in a proper format before. That was very earlier, which the government took into account.
Which is correct.
Which and made the changes.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
And that's something that we need to also highlight.
Yes.
Because the amendments that came from Mr. Charles, and even the Chief Secretary, I don't think he was the Chief Secretary.
No, he wasn't.
Right? But those amendments that came from Mr. Charles, some of them are what was laid in the House on the day by the leader of government business, Minister Camille Robinson Regis. But these supposed amendments that were forwarded via this document, and as the Prime Minister said, he got it 5 minutes before the sitting, right?
In our WhatsApp.
So in our WhatsApp, but we have to remember that the leader of government business kept asking the opposition.
What is the amendment?
Because the opposition said that they also had the document.
Correct.
And MP Saddam Hussein said that he got it an hour before.
Yes.
So if you got the document from the Chief Secretary an hour before, as a responsible parliamentarian, and not also just as a parliamentarian, but MP Saddam Hussein is also a lawyer.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
And as a lawyer, you ought to know. You've been in the parliament for some time now, so you know how these things are done. And if you don't know how they're done, you have the parliamentary staff to assist you in drafting amendments. So if you got this an hour before, if you were really interested in giving Tobago and voted in favor of the bills, you would have taken the same document that you got from the Chief Secretary. You would have drafted the amendments properly, and you would have laid the amendments in the House. And every time the leader of government business asked, do you have any amendments? You would have produced your amendment. But you did not. All you kept doing is referring to a document that the Prime Minister only got 5 minutes before the sitting. You had it an hour. And so it speaks to the alignment between the two entities. And the deception that the both entities have.
The alignment between the UNC and the TPP to deny Tobagonians autonomy.
Yeah,
that is what it is. What played out in the parliament on that day was perfect collaboration, perfect alignment between Fali of the TPP and those in the UNC to deny Tobagonians autonomy. Because clearly what they did was really trying to derail and stymie the process. As Senator Hislop said, if they were serious about moving this forward, then whatever recommendation of amendment that they wanted, that is what the committee stage affords and allows.
Exactly.
So a leader of government business kept asking, and the records are there. Member, do you have any amendments? And all he kept doing was trying to...
He was deflecting.
Defecting
That's it.
trying to
Deceptive again.
stymie, trying to bring down what was there. And when that was, because at every juncture, the government was able to show how this will work in the benefit of Tobago.
But I
Correct.
also want to say to the viewers tonight as well that this narrative that is being pushed, that they only knew about the bills going back to the parliament the Thursday before, is also dangerous and deceptive.
Correct.
Because the truth is,
Correct.
the bills never came off the order paper of the parliament.
Correct.
And if they're on the order paper, it means that the bills are still alive.
Correct.
And so, and that's why I made the point. 3 years you are in office.
Yeah.
You did no work, right? Because if the chief secretary was really serious about giving Tobago autonomy as well,
Yeah.
what the chief secretary had available to him was to have the discussions. If you recognize that there are deficiencies in the bills, have the discussion, come back to the people of Tobago. You are now the administration in office. Come back to the people of Tobago. Have consultations. You're in office 3 years.
Correct.
Have consultations.
Yeah.
Correct.
Get feedback from the people.
And
send a detailed document
This is what the
to the
people-
parliament. Because listen, if the bills are on the order paper, just as the motion that the minority brought to the House,
Correct.
if the bills are on the order paper, at any time, the chief secretary had the ability to write to the prime minister,
Yes.
to write to the parliament, to write to the leader of government business, to write to the opposition leader and
Yeah.
say, listen, we want to have a conversation about these bills that are before the parliament.
Yeah.
And persons have to also understand that that's public record.
Correct.
That's information
Correct.
that's there. So if you were serious, you come to the floor and you say, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to have a meeting because we want to discuss what these bills have. You sit down, you dialogue, you have conversation, and then you move forward. But you see, the chief secretary is extremely disingenuous on this matter because there was enough time, ample time, for him as the head, as they like to say, he's the leader of the government in Tobago. You had ample time as the leader of the administration in Tobago to have conversations. That's how you move governance forward. Not like sitting on a platform or getting up and calling people this and calling people that and calling people all kind of names. Go and sit in rooms and negotiate and have but you see the problem is big people that have conversations.
And then, but any reasonable person as well, and this also demonstrates that the chief secretary is quite unreasonable as well, because if you are saying, because if we had to take the deputy chief secretary to her word, that the bills were generally good bills that just needed minor tweaking, it meant that you are also saying that the vast majority of the proposals are in fact good proposals. And maybe there are a couple inside of there that needs to be adjusted. So it means if 90% of the 100% is good, and if you are getting 90% of the things that you want in a situation where you might have to wait, amend, or discuss further the other 10, would you reject that package of the 90 and leave yourself with nothing? Or take a position that says, if I can't get all, I don't want none at all. And now you are back to the same position, because that is what that is where we are as Tobagonians at this point. We are back to the very 1996 THA amended act.
Back, we never moved.
Well, we never moved from there.
We stuck there.
We are stuck.
Yes.
With that 1996 THA amended act, that we, all of us in Tobago, both majority, minority, everybody agrees that it is deficient, inadequate. It is inadequate, and at this point in time, it does not properly treat with Tobago's advancement and development
in the modern time.
In this modern
time. Because minority leader, the THA Act 40 of 1996 was not even adequate for
For
1996.
1996.
So take for example, as a member of the assembly, all we go there and do, you could have the best motion, the best policy, but when you go to the house, all it remains is basically a policy.
Yeah.
There's no way to lawfully effect and implement it, because the THA, as it is currently constituted, cannot by itself make laws to the point that it is ratified within the THA. It has to go
to
it has to be
Parliament.
transmitted to the cabinet,
then
and
to
then it has to
Parliament.
make its way
On the legislative
agenda. And therefore, we are really stuck in Tobago, and you had the opportunity to get to the point that finally you can go to the house, debate bills that once approved are sent it to by the president. No longer you have to wait on any parliament in Trinidad to approve your laws for you, and you throw that away.
Yeah.
Because somewhere in between that space, there's something there you don't like. And because you don't like one or two things, you're saying, I'm not going to take
and on what
the
basis?
rest of things.
On
So
what
for the
basis
people
you
who
don't
were
like it?
pending and was hoping that they would get, well, a hearing THA getting more money. So it means that I could probably be paid better. I could find a better job. I could now get some more resources to do my business.
Exactly.
My road that I was hoping to get paved for the longest while will finally be paved. The chief secretary by himself, because I don't even think he involved his members.
Nobody else said no about
voted
it.
for a unilateral position
Correct.
where we had a bipartisan arrangement. He by himself, and I want you to put up at this paper, because this, to me,
Want to get the document
must
back
be
up?
the chief secretary's legacy in Tobago. The
have to
man that
finish it.
denied Tobago autonomy in the year 2024.
And
That is what must be the chief secretary's legacy. The man, so you had A&R Robinson, we know, would have advocated
right.
for the Tobago House of Assembly.
Yes.
Then you had, in that period, you had coming along Mr. Charles and Mr. London, who would have advanced this discussion.
Don't leave out Dr. Murray, please.
And Dr.
Don't
Murray,
leave
of course, Dr. Murray.
out of that.
Right? But here in 2024, the records will show that Farley Chavez Augustine,
Correct.
after all the work would have done, including Ashwood Jack and all of them, from 1997 to present, on the day when the record should have shown 22 members of parliament for the PNM voted for, and the rest in the UNC also agreed. It was Farley Chavez Augustine who wrote to the members on the other side and told them, do not proceed, do not support. And therefore, Farley Chavez Augustine carries the legacy of denying Tobagonians its autonomy.
Because you say do not proceed.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative?
Yeah.
What's the alternative?
Exactly.
And I think on another program I would have said that I reiterate the point. This lazy behavior. This is lazy. You're going to wait until just before a sitting to send a document.
That was
That's
calculated.
lazy. It was calculated.
That was calculated.
Because it was deliberate to scuttle the process.
Exactly.
And the thing
Exactly.
you recall at Mr. Charles' funeral, that was basically the campaign tune throughout his presentation. We want autonomy, we want autonomy. And when the Prime Minister got up to speak, the Prime Minister indicated that very soon
You'll
that
be bringing it
issue of autonomy will be brought back to the fore, to the committee stage, and brought to a vote.
And that's what I'm saying, man.
So
you
therefore,
know it
you should
coming.
have started
Putting
knowing that it
things
was
in-
coming. If you had issues, as you rightfully said, any leader worth its salt and serious
Put in the
about
work.
ensuring that that process was successful to ensure a successful conclusion, would
Would
have
put in
done
the
the
work.
work
Yeah.
to ensure that we all got to a place where we can agree. And he did not.
And you know,
I want persons to, before we
did
close,
not-
because you know we'll get the cue just
Yes,
now.
yes.
I want persons to understand what was said in the next part. Coming after what he indicated that the consultative process was inadequate, he then went on to say, therefore, the process that produced the Tobago Island Government Bill 2021 violates the core principle of self-determination, and as such, the current administration of the THA submits that the bill be withdrawn. The current administration of the THA submits that the bill should be withdrawn.
and it goes back to the point that I'm making, that leadership was lacking in this process by the chief secretary. Because if the chief secretary was really and truly serious about giving Tobago additional autonomy, it was the chief secretary's responsibility
To lead the charge.
after the prime minister made a public declaration. And then you would have had, you know what? You would have had, as chief secretary, you would have had the moral authority now to stand up and say, well, I reached out to the prime minister and he ignored me. I presented a Tobago position, an evolved Tobago position, and he ignored me because I keep making the point, gentlemen, that if you came into office campaigning on a Tobago autonomy issue, you have been in charge
3
for
years.
3 years.
Yeah.
The bills have been at that stage for the same amount of time as well. You, as the leader of the governance system in Tobago, had the moral authority based on the oath that you took when you were sworn in to put Tobago's business first.
Yeah.
Go. You could do the same process. Go around to the communities.
Correct.
Have 3 or 4 consultations around the island and say, listen, we know this is where we are at, but we are the current administration and we want to put forward additional points on this autonomy issue and let Tobagonians have their say. Do the same thing. Have the same consultations, come out of the consultations with a position, have it drafted, come back to the house, debate, and send it through the same channels. And then you're going to have some moral authority.
Probably you should send him a bill.
There's too much
because that
sense you
no,
talk there.
you talk too much.
Too much sense you talk there, Senator.
It also exposes
Too
the
much.
inexperience and lack of leadership ability of this chief secretary. Because ultimately, if you campaign, when the chief secretary on the night of his election victory indicated to the Tobagonians that the issue of autonomy will be
front and center.
their front. That will be their In fact, they even said they were creating a standalone division to make sure
deal with that.
to deal with that. You remember that? They spent $4 million on a building in Trinidad.
And that was just rent.
So said the Tobago because they wanted to ensure that they had presence in Trinidad
empty.
to bring this issue of autonomy to its natural successful conclusion. And therefore, if the goal is to achieve autonomy, it means therefore all your actions need to be directed towards achieving that
in alignment with that.
How could you, at the very end, or when you meet that penultimate point, take a position that rather than achieving the goal, I'm going to say withdraw, discard.
No, but the only...
And I want to read it how he put it here. So persons will hear.
The only autonomy that they was fighting for was to take away the party from Watson.
And is what this was really about, based on how I view it. This aid memoir was really an aid memoir to help, an aid memoir for the UNC.
For the UNC.
It was an aid memoir to assist the UNC in not voting for the bill.
Yeah.
Because the UNC has no interest in giving Tobago more.
No.
And therefore, because they have their proxy in Tobago, they used him as their get out of jail card
Yeah.
to say, well, Farley say, don't vote for it.
Correct.
So I'm not voting for it. Because Farley said Tobago don't want it. So we're not voting for it. And this is what this was about. This is what this relationship is about. While the PNM was focused on giving Tobago more, Farley colluded with his UNC friends to deny Tobago and keep Tobago receiving less.
So he went on to say, this corrective action will rightfully afford the self-determination right holders, which are Tobagonians, the opportunity to design and engineer a form of Tobago Island government of their choice, which will be debated and passed in the Tobago legislature. And listen this, I want everybody to pay attention. This is the cornerstone on which true and genuine self-determination must be anchored. Do not proceed further with this bill.
So I want to ask
Those were the
Mr.
instructions.
Augustine one question, because if he said this is the cornerstone, passing the bill in the Tobago legislature. So this
I don't know how
Tobago
that bill
Island
passed.
government bill that was transmitted to the Prime Minister, where was it debated? And who passed it? And how did it get to the cabinet? And how did it get to the floor of the parliament? And how did it get to the GSC?
To the GSC.
And then how did the GSC do its work?
The same Prime Minister we say tried to block everything.
So then,
But it's so deceptive.
What more self-determination and principles of self-determination do you want, where something is generated from the people of Tobago, passed in the House of Assembly of the people of Tobago, transmitted without a comma even touched by the government of Trinidad and Tobago through its cabinet, laid in the parliament, placed in a JSC, where it was rigorously considered by both local, international, Tobago people, Trinidad people.
All over.
Wide discussions over, I think, 50-something consultations even between that JSC, between Trinidad and Tobago, notwithstanding all the consultations that went before. So what could be...
What is the issue?
What is the issue?
What is the issue?
And what more?
Yeah.
So because the point is, that took us over, in a real sense, that journey took us from 1997 to 2024, right? That was about, let's say, basically 2 decades, roughly 20 years, almost 20 years. And he's saying that process is inadequate.
Inadequate.
You know,
So think about, so for it to be, so just, no, I just want you to think that 20-year process.
20
is
years.
inadequate. How many years you think, and how many consultations, and how many, for it to be adequate? Because if 20 years of consultations, discussions, Trinidad, Tobago,
Inadequate.
international experts, going through the process is inadequate.
How much more time you need?
How much
They don't
more
even-
time?
They don't even
do
have
you
patience
need
to keep a show on
make
air.
this so adequate to the satisfaction of Mr. Augustine?
Gentlemen, I have been told.
We have to wrap up. These guys.
But I have been told by people in the know, in terms of the parliamentary system and the parliamentary process, that these two bills, in the history of the
leave with the Prime Minister? Yeah, decree.
in the history of the Trinidad and Tobago Parliament, has been the most consulted pieces of legislation that have come before the modern Parliament. The most consulted on pieces of legislation. The most amount of work has gone into these two pieces of legislation.
Correct.
And you know the sad part about that? All that work.
Has gone
All that work
Down the drain.
has gone down the drain.
Because one man say,
because of one man.
do
One
not
man.
proceed.
And this is something I want. The
media have this?
No. This must be placed in
We
the
have to put
mailbox.
this
You see this
out.
last page here?
Yeah, of every
This must be
Tobagonian.
placed in the Tobago, because some people saying they're not able to see it.
Yeah,
And we need to let Tobagonians see
exactly.
the work of failing Farley.
I like that.
The work of failing
Failing
Farley.
Valley.
right? We need every Tobagonian must have a copy
Yeah.
of this
We'll
last
get it to all the
page
media houses.
of failing folly that denied Tobagonians its autonomy.
Folks, we are not out of words. There's so much more that we have to ventilate, but we out of time, and it places a greater level of excitement and expectation to come back to you guys next week, Tuesday. But before we close off this evening, we are going to allow the director to play a clip of Dr. Rowley, the Prime Minister's response to this whole narrative that this deceptive, disingenuous Chief Secretary tried to pull on us. But before we go to that clip, I like the director just to pull up those two photos again, and then we go straight into the clip. So Tobago will remember that when an alignment is building and it's coming through, these are the persons who, as they had on the top right-hand corner, team what?
UNC.
Team UNC.
All I want to say is own your relationship
This
and
is not
own your
AI.
friends.
That is it.
Own your relationship and
Own
own
it.
your friends.
This is Photoshop.
Watch Team UNC.
Watch
Tobago.
Team UNC.
So when they come to you in blue,
Yeah.
know that their undercoat
Yellow.
is really yellow.
Yeah, this is not Photoshop.
Team UNC.
Yeah. So folks, we're going to go out with that clip. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. Stay tuned. A lot is happening. Stuff is going to be going out as during the week, even from the office of the minority leader and the party. So let's keep focused and let's stay on the right path. God bless. And Mr. Director, let's go out with that clip.
I don't want to be too harsh on the Chief Secretary, but I want to ask him to stop taking Tobagonians for fools. How many times do we have to tell the Chief Secretary that it takes 3/4 of the votes of the Parliament to amend the section of the Constitution that will provide this autonomy that he is talking about? He's not a member of Parliament, so maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I give him the benefit of the doubt that if you are so invested in attacking people relentlessly and making personal attacks on people, at least find out what you're talking about. He knows that the PNM only has 22 seats in Parliament. He knows that the PNM has not had 3/4 majority in the Parliament. He knows that when the bills came to the Parliament, even if those bills were going to be passed into government, he knows that he has said that that is not what he wants. But the majority of people in the Parliament said, this is a document in front of the Parliament, we vote on it. The majority of people in the Parliament, which are PNM people, voted for it. But that is not enough to bring about the change. If he wants to engage the issue, you notice he stays very far from talking about those who did not support it, because those are his friends. His friends in the UNC vote against it. He is not talking to and about them, but he is talking to and about the PNM that voted for it. Imagine those bills had in there a commitment to give the Tobago House of Assembly additional responsibilities and significant additional funding. And they vote against it. And he cheers himself by saying he's glad that the bills were voted down. And now he's wasting your time and my time talking about me not giving him and Tobago autonomy. I cannot give you what I don't have. We gave you every PNM vote in the attempt to give you 6.8% of the budget and to give you greater responsibility in Tobago. And that is clear, so I don't know what he's talking about. What he's talking about is pure politics, hoping that Tobagonians are stupid enough not to understand that he's taking them for fools. So I hope he'll stop doing that, because as a Tobagonian, I feel offended that he's taking Tobagonians for fools by talking that nonsense about not giving Tobago. We cannot give Tobago what we don't have in the Parliament. In the Parliament, depending on the nature of the decision to be made, you can make some with a simple majority, 50% plus one. Or you can make some with a 2/3 majority. But important matters like changing the constitution to remove central government and the responsibility of a minister to the island of Tobago requires a 3/4 majority, meaning 3/4 of the member of the parliament must vote for that. And that being so, even without that, we have arrangement in the Tobago House of Assembly Act for the discharge of ministerial responsibility to take place through the assembly without section 75 being amended. So in terms of operations of Tobago's business, there's no real damage being done because the THA Act makes room for ministers to not run Tobago, for Tobago's business to be run by the Tobago House of Assembly under the THA Act. And it has been done like that since the Robinson days when they had 33-3 in the parliament. 33-3 in the parliament, there was a 3/4 majority. I didn't see any breakneck speed to make the change that Mr. Augustine is talking about. Now that you don't have it, you're demanding it of somebody who doesn't have it. That is just folly. And he thinks that is a good election campaign. He thinks that is good politics. But I think it's just folly. Because he's not fooling anybody except he has a handful of friends around him who, this cliche about giving you autonomy. Knowing that the parliament, unless the UNC vote for it, some of them, to add to the PNM votes, to get to the 3/4 majority, it's not on. That's what it is. So when you see him again, explain that to him for me, please. And I hope that he will stop trying to fool Tobago people. Because he sounds very foolish making that argument.